The Four Nations Faceoff is off to a roaring start with a couple of Lightning players playing a big part in its opening. We'll talk about the beginning to the Four Nations tournament and which Lightning players might make the NHL quarter century team. This is Locked On Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Josh Sperber, thanking all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if your team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, then this is the show for you. And we're going to start today's episode by taking a look at Game 1 of the Four Nations Faceoff. Really nice ceremony at the start of it, honoring some of the greats of the game to play for all four nations involved. And it was Canada and Sweden, the first two teams to get started in the Four Nations Face-Off. The Tampa Bay Lightning had a number of players on Team Canada, 3 to be exact. Brayden Point, Brandon Hagel, and Anthony Cirelli, the 3 Canadians represented on the Lightning, plus the head coach John Cooper of the Bolts, also coaching Team Canada, and the general manager Julien Brisebois is Canada's team manager as well. And it was one of the Lightning's top players, one of the first 6 named to the Canadian roster back in June, Brayden Point, who helped the Bolts strike, well, close to first, I should say. Brayden Point getting the primary assist to Brad Marchand. Beautiful pass underneath the entire Sweden defense early in the first period to make it 2-0 Canada. Victor Hedman, though, was instrumental in getting the next goal across. He got the primary assist to Jonas Brodin. Kind of just held the defense in balance as well. I mean, such a great play by Victor Hedman. He was in a perfect position in the center of the ice. He could have stepped right into a slap shot, but he just kind of held it until the Canadian defense went at him, found Brodin in a perfect space and an angle to shoot. And the pass was in stride. Brodin did a really good job using a screen to avoid the goaltender, and it was 2-1. Sweden ended up tying the game with 2 third-period goals until Mitch Marner's overtime winner. But plenty of good things to say about the Canadian Bolts. It really seemed like in a lot of ways Brayden Point was leading the offense. I think Sidney Crosby, of course, was the maestro behind much of Canada's offense, getting assists on every goal except for the Marchand goal that Brayden Point had a hand in. But I think Brayden Point had a big hand in leading the Canadian offense as well. I think other than Crosby, you can argue that Brayden Point was generating the most chances in the game. I mean, and his passing just is it's just so noticeable how much that has improved this year. And I feel like every game that Point plays, I get more and more impressed with the way that he's passing the puck. Because guys who are just natural goal scorers like that, yeah, I mean, you know that they can pass the puck, but just you just feel like some of the difficult passes aren't as easy for them to make. And this year, it just seems like those threading passes, those through passes have just come so easily to Brayden Point. And I'm just really impressed by the work that he has clearly put in on his passing ability. Not that he wasn't a good passer before, but just something has clicked for Brayden Point, and he has added so much to his passing game that I think really helps round out his offense. And on the Sweden side, I mean, it shows the leadership of Victor Hedman once again. I mean, with the Lightning, he's always leading from the front, helping spark momentum on the offense by playing a more active role than a defenseman might play in a normal run of the offense. But Hedman was clearly the best Swedish defender on the ice, and maybe the best defender from either team on the ice. And I think overtime really showed that. Hedman, within the first minute, Hedman came in. He wasn't the starting defenseman in the 3-on-3 overtime, but towards the end of the game, Victor Hedman really seemed like he was the only reason that Sweden was hanging on. Because in the last few moments of Hedman's shift, McDavid led an overtime breakaway, and Hedman was there to kind of shade him away from the goal, block his path, and make some really nice defensive plays to help out his goalie. And Canada really put it in overdrive in overtime, really pressed the attack. And it was Victor Hedman was the main stopper. And you could tell that they tired him out. They mentioned it on the TV broadcast. And it was almost as soon as Hedman came off that Canada ended up scoring the winner. Hedman left. Sidney Crosby immediately came in, attacked the Swedish defense, spun around and made a nice pass to Mitch Marner, who ended up winning the game. And I think a big reason that Canada got that go-ahead goal is because they tired out the main engine of Sweden's defense, and that's Victor Hedman. Plain and simple. I think that if they don't have the offensive effort that is just punishing towards Sweden's defense and forces them to make a defensive substitution with a guy like Hedman, who typically plays the most minutes among any player for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and you look on Team Sweden, and it was the same again. He played almost 10 more minutes more than most of the offensive players with Sweden, and 3 minutes more than Gustav Forsling on defense as well. The overtime, obviously, with a big addition to his minutes, but Victor Hedman, above and beyond, playing more minutes than anyone on the ice last night. And that's something that he does with the Lightning night in and night out. And it's truly amazing, honestly, to see him still getting that kind of longevity into games and being able to just eat shifts and provide multiple quality shifts for whatever team he's playing on at 34 years old. I mean, Victor Hedman has truly remained as one of the best defensemen on the planet. I mean, not just in the NHL. I think you can easily argue that Victor Hedman is one of the best defenders currently lacing it up in the NHL right now. That's something that we're going to talk about a little bit in the final segment of this show as well. But I think just to kind of wrap up this Four Nations segment, I think that so far Victor Hedman is making the most impact on his team. I think a lot of that is because Canada has so much offensive talent, and it allows them to unleash such a punishing attack. And Hedman is the main guy for Sweden who had to stop it. So I think he is making the exact impact that you'd expect him to make. But I'm really liking what I'm seeing from a lot of the Bolts playing for Team Canada. Braden Point, as I mentioned, being such a big part in Canada's offense, and Brandon Hagel and Anthony Cirelli playing a lot of shifts. I mean, it seemed like whatever Canada needed a defensive shift, whenever they needed some guys to just skate around and really help wear out the Swedish team, Cirelli and Hagel's line came on. And they just continued to make so many strong defensive plays. In the tying goal, it was pretty much right against Anthony Cirelli, but that goal certainly wasn't his fault. Cirelli was just going back and forth to seemingly covering three different Swedes to try and stop that tying goal, but Sweden's passing just really tied the Canadian defenses up and forced some tough switches and made it really difficult for Cirelli in Canada. But it seemed like by the end of the game, Sweden was just avoiding going to wherever Brandon Hagel was, because it seemed like whenever Hagel was challenged, he would force a loose puck here. He would cause a turnover there. I mean, he was just playing exactly like you'd expect Brandon Hagel to play, just being an absolute pest on defense and really helping Canada control the game. But ultimately, it went to Sweden, and I'm certainly excited to see how the rest of these Lightning players shape up throughout the tournament. But we're going to talk about Brandon Hagel and Anthony Cirelli as we ended the first segment speaking about them, because they continue to show off their incredible combination for Team Canada at the Four Nations. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's just the perfect grab and go snack for my busy days, whether I'm snacking my desk on a road trip over to Amalie Arena or just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Something that bolstered Team Canada against Team Sweden, and something that has been a crucial part of the Tampa Bay Lightning for is this entire season and really the past couple of years since Brandon Hagel was traded to the Tampa Bay Lightning back at the deadline in 2002 from the Chicago Blackhawks. Hagel has called his best friend Anthony Cirelli, who has obviously done the same. The two guys have really been friendly since Hagel came over, and Cirelli, who had been with the team since 2017, has continued his relationship with Brandon Hagel ever since. A quote that Hagel had about Anthony Cirelli before Four Nations, that he learned so much from Tony, and when he got put on Anthony's line, might have brought out a little bit. I know we can play defense, but we can also play offense too. I think he's grown so much in that aspect. He has always had it, and that is certainly shown out this year, as both Hagel and Cirelli have been scoring on an absolutely torrid pace. Cirelli up to 20 goals for the second straight season, but the main difference is from this year and last year, he had 20 goals in 79 games last season, as well as 25 assists, which was a career high in goals, and 3 assists off of his career high pace. He is already now 6 assists off of his career high pace. He had 28 in 68 games in 2019 through 2020, and he's tied his career high in goals. So Cirelli likely to set that when the NHL season returns after Four Nations. The Lightning have their first game with the Seattle Kraken when the Four Nations break ends on February 23rd. And, I mean, I think the two-way aspect has certainly shown out for Cirelli and Hagel this season. I think both of those players should be guys under consideration for the Frank Selke Award, given the best two-way forward at the end of every NHL season. But as good as their defenses looked, I think the offense for both of these players, to me, has been the most eye-catching. And it's not to try and detract or take anything away from what Cirelli and Hagel bring to the table defensively. As I said in that last segment, it really seemed by the end of the game that Sweden was kind of going away from Hagel. They were trying to move the puck around and generate momentum going away from Brandon Hagel. So he just, wouldn't keep creating chaos the way he does defensively. And Cirelli continued to do much of the same thing. I mean, he marked his men as well as he possibly could have. Just by the end of the game, Sweden was finding ways to kind of pass around really both of them. But I don't think that there's ever a point where the defensive impact of Cirelli and Hagel really goes unnoticed. But a lot of the times when you have those really quick defensive-minded players, the offensive side can really go overlooked. But especially the way both of them have been playing this season, the offensive play really can't be looked for these two anymore. Both of them are right around 27 years old, with Hagel a little bit younger at 26. And both of them are on pace to smash their career highs. I mean, you look at the point totals in their career for both of them through a little over 50 games. Each of them is not very far off setting a new career high. Anthony Cirelli is going to absolutely obliterate his career high of 45 points set last year, already with 42 through 53 games this season. Last year, he played 79. So I can only expect that point total to pile up a lot more. And Brandon Hagel had really been reaching new heights in his career since joining the Tampa Bay Lightning. Even John Cooper said that, he wouldn't have thought to see a guy like Brandon Hagel playing on Team Canada, maybe even Cirelli, but Hagel specifically, he was talking about, because Hagel has really experienced a career. He has just experienced, I don't know if you can call it a resurgence, but just he has reached new heights in his career since leaving the Chicago Blackhawks. I mean, he's been getting more time on ice with the Lightning, but even the season that he left Chicago, he was playing, second or third line minutes with the Blackhawks. In 55 games, he'd average over 17 minutes of time on the ice, with 37 points with the Blackhawks. Through 55 games now with the Tampa Bay Lightning, he has almost doubled that point total. 26 goals, tied last year. His numbers and his career high 30 set in his first full season with the Lightning in 2022. His plus minus is higher than ever. His penalty minutes are down. His assists are on the way up to his 49 or more. I believe that he's going to get his first 50 assist season. And I think that it's a real possibility that in the next less than 30 games, Hagel can get the 38 points necessary to give him his first 100-point season. I think that's really a possibility for Hagel, the way that he's been playing. And I think that the connection that he has had with Anthony Cirelli, the way that both of them just kind of know where each other are going to be at any way. I mean, Cirelli, before Four Nations got started, was talking about just he always knows that Hagel has his back, and Hagel always knows the same thing. And I think that, having two guys like that, I mean, it's so difficult to find any other pair like Hagel and Cirelli. You look on any other team in the NHL, I just don't think there's a duo like Hagel and Cirelli with any other NHL team. I just don't see two players that bring the best out of each other like those two do on the offensive and defensive side of things. And it's why you see so many of Hagel's goals and assists Cirelli is on the same line as, whether it's each on the same assist or Hagel dishing to Cirelli or vice versa. These guys just find each other, and their skill sets complement each other so well. They play the game in such a similar way, and both of them being on the ice can really help a team control the puck on the offensive side and control the flow of the game on the defensive side. And I think it's a big reason why John Cooper and Julien Brisebois selected the dynamic duo to Team Canada, and they certainly think that it can help them win this inaugural Four Nations, while the Tampa Bay Lightning know that Hagel and Cirelli combination can certainly be lethal and help them make some waves in the playoffs. And that is certainly what we'll be having our eye on Team Canada, how well they play off each other. But then over the course of the rest of the Lightning season, how that duo can help the Bolts to playoff success. And speaking of success, we're talking a little bit more about the quarter century teams. After releasing one for each NHL organization, the NHL is making an all NHL quarter century team. And I think there are some Lightning players that deserve a spot on it. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every single week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle. Whether it is Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto Plus, Factor even offers you wholesome smoothies, breakfast, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. I love how Factor takes the stress out of meal planning. I recently tried their Protein Plus meals, and they were packed with flavor and help keep me full throughout the day. And the convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, just good food in minutes. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50off and use the code LockedOnNHL50off to get $50 off of your first box plus free shipping. That's code LockedOnNHL50off for Factor meals to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. So that's the code LockedOnNHL50off at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Welcome back to our final segment of today's episode of Locked On Lightning. As you guys may remember, the Tampa Bay Lightning had a quarter century team released on January 28th. The NHL had done that over the month of January and into February, releasing quarter century teams for every single squad in the NHL. Now they're going all the way towards a full NHL quarter century team, making all of the members of each team's quarter century teams now on or have eligibility for the entire NHL quarter century teams. The only players that will be eligible will be the first team members for the Tampa Bay Lightning. That's 3 forwards, Marty St. Louis, Steven Stamkos, and Nikita Kucherov on defense, Victor Hedman and Dan Boyle. And in net, obviously, Andrei Vasilevsky. So those are the 6 Lightning players that are eligible for the NHL's quarter century team. And we're going to take a look through those 6 players to see who could be on the NHL's quarter century team. And we're going to start with the goaltenders, which is difficult for a lot of reasons, because I do think that Andrei Vasilevsky does deserve some consideration as one of the best NHL goalies of the last quarter century. The problem is the childhood hockey and sports fan in me might not let me make that pick with guys like Marty Brodeur and Patrick Waugh on the list. The big thing for Vasilevsky that I think helps his candidacy is the fact that he became the fastest player to one of the biggest NHL goaltender milestones, the 300-win milestone. Through his first 500 career games, no one in NHL history has ever had more wins than Andrei Vasilevsky, who became the first player to reach 300 career wins before his 500th career game. He has 20 win seasons in each of his last 9 seasons after playing a combined 40 games and winning 34 of those games in his first 2 NHL seasons. After that, it's been 20-plus win seasons each year. A Conn Smythe Trophy in 2021, a Vezina Trophy in 2019, and, of course, 2 Stanley Cup wins as a primary goaltender. And you look at that list, and there are not a lot of players in the goal who can say that they have reached that kind of success. So I think I might honestly still choose a Marty Brodeur or a Patrick Waugh as my number 1 goalie on the NHL quarter century team. But I think that Andrei Vasilevsky absolutely deserves to be in that conversation. And on defense, though, I think is where the Lightning have the best chance with Victor Hedman, because he truly has been one of the best and most influential defensemen in the NHL over the last quarter century, a huge part of those Lightning championship teams, a long-time Lightning alternate captain and a Sweden captain. I think, honestly, with Sweden, one of the top-ranked hockey nations in the world, naming Victor Hedman as the captain really just helped cement him. A captain for a tournament like this is truly a huge honor, and Victor Hedman absolutely deserves it, winning the Morris Trophy in 2017 and 18, Conn Smythe Trophy in 2020, and, of course, a member of those 2 Stanley Cups. Victor Hedman, the Conn Smythe winner for the Lightning's second ever Stanley Cup. He's truly been one of the best players. And I'm looking on this list of defensemen, and I don't know if I see 1 or 2 guys that I would put on over him. I mean, looking at the guys on this list, you got to give Zdeno Chara a look, maybe Drew Doughty, Shea Weber, Victor Hedman. These are some of the guys that I think might be the men to look at on that list. And I think the longevity of Victor Hedman, who has played some of the most games over the NHL quarter of the last quarter century. There have been few, if any, players that have played even more than him. They have played more than him, but Victor Hedman has to be on first or second quarter century team, whichever one. And last but not least, on offense, Stamkos and St. Louis, I think, have a more outside shot for the quarter century team. Nikita Kucherov, I think, absolutely should be on it. I think you look at the quarter century team, and there's a lot of choices on it. There's a lot of great forwards who've played in the NHL over the last couple of years. Jake Gensel, also an eligible forward on the quarter century team, as well as Ryan McDonough, though Gensel for the Penguins, McDonough for the Rangers, as those are the first teams. I think there are obviously two forwards on this quarter century team that are non-negotiable, and that's Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin. But then, I think right up there with the Joe Thorntons, with the Jerome McGinleys, you absolutely have to absolutely put Nikita Kucherov's name in consideration. Since Nikita Kucherov came to the NHL, there have been few people who have scored as much or more points than he has. He's on the verge of reaching 1,000 points. He's expected to do that this season for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now I think it's an argument that he is the best player in the NHL. 955 career points, 45 over the next 30 games for Kucherov, certainly doable. So he could go for what would be a third consecutive 100-point season, which would be truly remarkable. But I think Nikita Kucherov right now is the best player in the NHL. And looking on the forwards list, other than I think Crosby and Ovechkin, there aren't the amount of guys that have done what Kucherov has done. Connor McDavid can maybe get a spot on the list. There are plenty of players, especially forwards, I think, that could be quarter century. But you look at the guys that could be on that quarter century team for the whole NHL. If anyone's got a chance for a Lightning forward, I think it's Nikita Kucherov. St. Louis, a Hall of Famer. Steven Stamkos, absolutely a Hall of Famer. But neither of them have been better than Nikita Kucherov, I don't think, over these last 25 years. So I think the best shot is going to be Victor Hedman to get on the quarter century team. I think that he has been one of, if not the best, NHL defenseman over the past 25 years. On offense, Nikita Kucherov's got a chance with Andrei Vasilevsky. I would say if you look on the quarter century team, after maybe Brodeur and Patrick Waugh, and, Hank Lundqvist is a name that you can certainly consider on there, but the Stanley Cups of Vasilevsky might give him an edge. So you've got three Lightning players, I think you can argue, have been the best over this last 25 years. And if you guys have more to say on that, feel free to comment it on any of our posts and give us a like, a follow, and a subscribe to whichever service you decided to listen to today's podcast on. I want to give you a big thank you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. And for your second listen, make sure to check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And remember, please give us a like, a subscribe, and follow. We really appreciate your guys' support. And once again, thank you for tuning in to Locked On Lightning. Have a great day and go Bolts.